guys, welcome back to another episode of the Web3 Quick Bite podcast. The podcast where we jam to the latest beats in the decentralized world and chat with some of the brilliant minds in the Web3 industry. I'm your host, Olabisi, and today we are chatting with Tarusha Mittal. She's the successful COO and co-founder of Unifarm and Dapps, blazing trails for women Web3 builders along the way. As a Web3 veteran running booming platforms Unifarm and Dapps, Tarusha is crafting adoption magic and trailblazing as top COO. And with awards like Anita Bugs 2022 Entrepreneur Honore, she simply can't stop winning. And with over a decade dominating marketing and operations, best believe Tarusha has secrets to drop on perfecting your Web3 game. So Web3 Rangers, get those notepads ready because the true buzz lady is about to spill the tea on crafting breakout brands in the decentralized world. But first, let's get to know the Web3 Wonder Woman herself, the amazing Tarusha Mittal. Hi, Tarusha. So great to have you with us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you so much for your kind words. I'm really excited and looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, same here. But first, before diving into how to create breakout brands, I would like to ask you, what
Mhm.
special moment initially ignited your passion for Web3 and set you on this amazing journey?
I would have to say, just reading the Bitcoin white paper. I started my journey several years ago, and at that point, I was working on a data center startup, and somehow the startup itself was, but not scaling at that moment because AWS had entered the market, and that is the same time when I came across the Bitcoin white paper. I read that, and I really fell in love with the technology. So that was the point when I started mining, and that is how I got into Web3. So I would definitely say that I came here because the attraction of the technology was way too high, and I thought that, and I still believe that this technology is going to bring upon the new era for humanity as a whole.
Yeah, that's last line is important. I also believe that too. And I'm looking forward to when it's going to actually change the world. Right?
Hmm.
Okay, so you've built multiple successful Web3 startups and led them as COO. What are the top three characteristics that set apart rockstar builders and leaders in the Web3 space?
I think one would be the first thing would be perseverance. That you need to sort of persevere and build and keep your head. And I would like to perhaps quote, if you're at this point, which is one of my favorite poems, that if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs. So even in a bear market, if you can show perseverance and you can build, I think that is something that will set you apart. Because there was something beautiful that I had read on Twitter. Somebody had tweeted that in Web3, either you're in for the very long game, or you are not there at all. Like there is nothing like obviously you can be there for a very short game either, as well, which might be like running a rug pull or a scam. But if you really want to build, then it has to be for a long time. There is no median, range in Web3. You have to be there for the long game. So I think perseverance would be one. Second is that I do really believe that a Web3 founder or a builder does need to look at and take care of a few more aspects of business that perhaps in Web2 that are not there. So, for example, taking care of tokenomics, taking care of the token itself, if you do have a native token or any kind of economy that you're trying to create, that becomes, a defining factor in your startup trajectory. And that would be just the quality to perhaps juggle a lot of things would come in really handy for a Web2 founder. And a third of all, I do truly believe that a good founder should be a storyteller, somebody who is able to really connect with and connect with the user, and also perhaps convince or relate to the user's pain, and be able to create a story around it which aligns with the product or the problem that they are solving and the product that they are building. So those three, I think, are important characteristics for anybody who's trying to build in Web3.
Hmm. Awesome. So now let's talk about your role as a COO. So
Hmm.
your role involves you overseeing marketing and operations. I mean, those are two crucial but often overlooked areas in Web3. So what innovative marketing strategies would you say you've leveraged to drive adoption for your blockchain startups?
So there are many innovative techniques and growth hacks that we kind of keep experimenting with. But I think one that I keep going back to is essentially ensuring that you're building your community right. And by building the community, it is not as simple as just building a group on Telegram or perhaps a server on Discord and leaving it be and just having random conversations there. But actually building a community which is perhaps more like your audience, right? You're creating content, and you are adding value into their lives in a larger way, where at some point they would readily buy from you as well. So I think there is no gimmick here. It needs to be a long term, concentrated effort, which is done time and again, to ensure that you have the user's attention. You also have their respect, and then they would perhaps then wouldn't be so like hard to get by, and they would want to perhaps use your product. So that is like something very, very important. I think I truly believe that is how you get your initial customers and also your repeating customers, if you are able to create a personal connect with the user who is potentially going to be using your platform.
Okay, so it's safe to say that it's important for builders to always create a connection between their project, their product, and the users, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You cannot be solving for a problem that doesn't exist in the user's head, right? So it needs to be, if you are, and if you are doing something which is very 0 to 1, and you feel that is a problem which the user is not perhaps seeing right now, then obviously it's a uphill battle, and it's not an impossible battle. It's just an uphill battle. But even then, you need to have a certain connect with your user so that you're able to get them on your side, to make them understand that why your solution really makes their life better.
Right. Awesome. So let's talk about building Web3 startups. And you are the best person, if I can say the bestest person to answer this question perfectly. So when building your Web3 startups, how do you prioritize your roadmap and decide that, okay, these use cases are features we are going to focus on first? And how do you balance short-term execution with long-term vision?
Right. So, this is a very interesting question. So I think when it comes to the roadmap question, I would take it a step further and go back to what I was saying earlier, that, you need to be solving for a problem that actually exists. And I think that is the best way to sort of build a platform. So even before that, then, you need to hang out with the people who are potentially going to be using your solution. So, your community, just hanging out in that particular niche, where does the potential user really spends their time online, and hanging out with them there, trying to understand their problems, and then perhaps moving forward and trying to build a solution is key. And then when it comes to the roadmap itself, I am a big believer of creating MVPs, like a minimum viable product, which with no bells and whistles, but something that works, and shipping it out, so that you can fail and fail fast if you need to. Otherwise, you can really scale it. So when it comes to building your roadmap, I do think that you should start with an MVP, and once that MVP is sort of ready, then with the user feedback and with iteration, you can decide what kind of features to prioritize and what kind of features you want to perhaps do it in one quarter. Usually, what happens with founders is that they come up with great ideas, and they are wonderful people who have all of this innovation in them, and they want to add all the things all together to their product, right? I think we've all been guilty of that at some point or the other. But you really need to be a little disciplined with yourself, that okay, then in this particular quarter, these are the features that we're going to be putting out, unless it is like a very critical bug resolution. You should not move away from that particular roadmap after creation of the MVP, that is, just so that you can actually stick to the timelines that you're committing to yourself, you're committing to your community, and you can deliver them. Because see, it's not just about the community here, even though obviously that is a very big part. But what happens is that if you continuously keep missing deadlines that you're setting for yourself, as a founder and as a leader of a team, it can become very, very demoralizing. And you wouldn't want that. You don't want to get demotivated while you're building and trying to scale a product, right? So my advice in 2 sentences would be: create an MVP, and then create perhaps monthly or quarterly, feature maps, and just stick to those. Any other new idea that you're coming in, you're coming up with in that certain time period, just put it in the icebox unless it is critical. and then just be disciplined and stick to the timeline.
Right. Awesome. That was a brilliant answer. Thank you. So let's talk about your accomplishments in the space, because we do not have a lot of women in the Web3 space yet. The ratio of men to women is actually high. I mean, it's outrageously high.
Yeah.
But you accomplished quite a lot. And so, as an accomplished woman founder in Web3, what unique challenges have you faced in fundraising and pitching your startup vision, and how did you manage to overcome them?
This has been my experience even before Web3. Like I was working just in deep tech. I think the gender ratio is skewed in almost all professional spaces, against women, and this is all over the world, and it's very sad. But I think initially when I started out working, I wasn't thinking in terms of gender. I think I wanted my actions to, do the talking. And then when I did face some resistance in terms of like, whether a woman founder would be technical enough, or questions that were directed by investors or promoters to my co-founder, because I thought that he would be, more um, like he would be better to be able to answer them. That kind of did prick me and did prick my ego a little bit. But then again, see, you can't really fight every battle that you're called for. You're here in the for the long haul. You can't waste your energy on those things. It's better to let your work do the talking, and I think that is essentially what I've done. I've tried to basically shut down the naysayers, or anybody who might have had doubts, by just doing the work, being consistent, persevering, and building products that drive in value, trying to deliver value to the users as well as to clients. I think that is like the best way to sort of move forward. And also to obviously make sure that, you are upskilling yourself, and, you are growing yourself. And so that you also don't feel stagnant personally or professionally. That becomes very, very important, I think.
Right, awesome. So let's talk about entrepreneurs that are looking to build impactful Web3 projects. I mean, everybody has a project idea, everybody has a startup vision, everybody wants to build the next big thing in Web3, something that's going to transform Web3. So how do you recommend identifying and validating product market fit? And what advice do you have for avoiding common pitfalls?
Okay, so this is a very good question. When it comes to, see, everybody, as you said, has good ideas, but ideas are cheap. Execution is what matters. So what you need to do really as a founder or somebody who has a great idea is to actually figure out how you can build, or the quickest and the cheapest way. And cheapest, I don't just mean in terms of money. I also mean in terms of time. That if you're putting in any resources, what is the best way to go about building an MVP for that said idea? And then go about doing it. Like, don't let anybody who's discouraging you, or let your naysayers take you down. You are brave enough that you have this idea, and you must have gotten this idea because you were meant to work on it. There is no other reason why you would get this idea in your brain. So I'm a strong believer in energy. I think if you're getting an idea, it's some energy that has popped up in your head, then you are meant to work on it. So don't let any fear stop you. Do your best. Try to get it off the ground, and ask for help where it is required. So that and I do truly think that there are more helpful people and kinder people in the world than the ones who seemingly are like unkind. And if you ask them, they will be ready to help you out. I don't think there is any way that you any formula that kind of would help you in not failing, because failure is a part of any professional journey, as a part of life as well. I do truly think that you only fail when you stop trying. When you give up, that is when you failed. Otherwise, you just learned another way that does not work, right? And all of this sounds really idealistic, but this kind of goes back to what I had said in my first answer, that perseverance is very, very important. If you're going to make it as an entrepreneur, you need to have a really, really thick skin, because any business, no matter how big the scale, how small the scale, will have problems, right? And will have you as a founder would be asked to, water out fires every day. You'll be fighting fires every day. And that is just the journey itself. It's very rewarding. So it's very important that, you kind of share and obviously, celebrate the small wins. But don't be discouraged by failure. I think that, you're just discovering another way that does not work. That does not mean that the idea is bad. And that does not mean that, you're not a good founder or a builder. It just means that there can be a host of, reasons why that particular idea did not work. It could be that the timing is not right, and or the market is not ready, or the execution was just not right. It could be anything. But that doesn't make you a bad founder. It just makes you, somebody who's tried and it didn't work out. So, you've got to try again in a different way, perhaps, after, taking in the lessons from the failure.
Yeah, awesome. And it's also easy for founders to sort of give up in this space because there's the problem of Web3 hasn't gained mainstream adoption yet. We are the users, we are the customers, or might get them from. It's just a lot of mental gymnastics all the time. I think
Yeah.
about that. But then, yeah, thanks for the brief advice on. I mean, if it doesn't work out, doesn't mean you're a failure. It's just learn another way on how it's not going to work, and then just
Yeah.
come up with something else.
See, it's about adoption. The adoption problem is like a very big problem in Web3. And I totally agree that, any founder getting in the space would be wondering whether it's, worth the while at all. I would like to assure them that it is worth a while, because the technology itself is very beautiful. It's here to stay. The cycles are there in every market and every sector. It's just in crypto and Web3, the cycles are a little shorter. And the adoption will come as long as the good players are still building, and they're building products that will actually help users in their everyday life, their day-to-day life. I do see a future where blockchain technology and decentralized technology become like the very backbone on which these apps are operating, and users would be using them right now, pretty much akin to like the internet, that not everybody understands how the internet works, but they're on it, right? So that is how I see decentralized technologies being a part of everyday life as well. That, they might not understand it, but they will be using it because it'll become an intrinsic part of their everyday life, solving real problems.
Yes. Still on mainstream adoption. So mainstream adoption, of course, is critical for Web3 projects. But
Right.
how do you create accessibility for, let's say, non-crypto native users? And what advice do you have on designing intuitive user experiences?
Yeah. I think this is something that I've been saying from day one, like since I got into Web3, that the UI and the user experience is so horrible, and it's very tedious to onboard new users. So I think that is one of the bigger challenges that we need to solve as founders, as to how we can make it easier. As for my take, I think when when you're creating your application or your platform, try to keep it as least resistive as possible to just for the sign up. Maybe keep a social login instead of like having a MetaMask login, expecting your user to have a wallet, perhaps. You can perhaps guide them at a later stage, but just to acquire those users so that they can at least try out the platform, maybe try out social logins, maybe, with the design itself, to try to keep as less steps as possible before they can, become a part and see the product itself. Have a very, very engaging community where, your value proposition or your social and your content, should all be driven towards educating the user as to why your product is very valuable and it's going to change their day-to-day life. I think those are very basic things that a founder or a builder can follow to ensure that there is more adoption to their product. Obviously, intuitive design changes are there, like, you're designing perhaps something as simple as navigation, which is very similar to Web2 applications in your Web3 application, would also, give you a huge advantage. So small things like that. Just think of think of when you're making the application, when you're designing it, think of perhaps your parents using it, and see what is the best way that they can perhaps navigate, and use hand-holding tools as well.
Yeah, yeah. So the little things actually matters, goes a long way. All right. So let's talk about your passion in empowering women entrepreneurs in Web3, because of course you're clearly passionate about it. So in your experience, what are the biggest challenges women currently face in entering this space?
So I think the number one, and this will always be, women are just, they tend to second guess themselves, and they seem to have a little less confidence because they see less representation, right? So it is actually not their fault, but despite the little representation, despite a diffidence, women need to go out all guns blazing. There was a very beautiful thing that Michelle Obama had said, and I am paraphrasing, but she had said that, I have been in all of these big rooms with these men on these huge tables, and it's easy to lose your confidence. But then, you kind of, I realized very quickly, and she said that you realize that these most of these men also are not they don't know as much as they say they do, and they are not as perhaps intellectually superior as much as they are projecting themselves to be. So you have every right to be there. You have every right to be at every table where decisions are being taken. You have every right to be in every space if you're building something. Even if you're not building something, if you're just like a community partner or a stakeholder in some way. But I think number one thing is just put yourself out there. Stop being so scared. It's important that you don't take you don't take yourself down, because the entire world is going to do it for you anyway. So you have to hype yourself up and make sure that you are putting yourself out there. You're going after your dreams, and just don't speak lowly and of yourself in your own head, because as I said, a lot of people will try to do that any which way for you. So that would be one. And the other thing would be that, um, again, I do think that representation is a very big problem in Web3. So if you are already building in Web3 and you are a female founder, or you are somebody who is perhaps non-binary, or basically anybody who's being underrepresented in any way, then it's your onus, it's your duty to perhaps go out there and talk more with fellow builders or potential builders, because that is the only way that more people will join, because I think representation becomes very important. See, I'll give you an example. As little girls, I think all over the world, we've seen this phenomena mostly when they're growing up. They don't see, or at least perhaps in a generation before us, they did not see a lot of women step out and professionally, or the only women they saw who were stepping out professionally were their teachers or nurses, and those were the professions that these little girls aspired for when they were asked, what do you want to become when you become like an adult? And there is a reason for that. The reason is representation. So I do think that the onus comes down to the people who are already in the space, and that they need to go out and speak more, talk more about their experiences, have the right, you already have all the skills and you have the confidence. And who cares if you say something which is not, perhaps 100% correct? It's okay. Like, we are humans, we make mistakes, you apologize, and you move on, you learn from that. There's no point in sitting on it and second guessing yourself and not having the confidence. I think that those would be very important pieces of advice that I would give any female founder.
Well, I mean, as a woman myself, I needed to listen to this. I needed to listen to it. And I love the part where I said always hype yourself up. So going forward, I'm always going to hype myself up anywhere I go.
Yeah, see, everybody's gonna, like, somebody or the other is gonna be, not happy with you. See, you are not ice cream. You're not gonna be able to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
That is okay. It's fine. It's fine if people are not happy with you. Who cares? There are always these anonymous people who are sitting on social media who have nothing better but to take people down. And who are they? They are some nameless, faceless person who's perhaps not doing anything, and they're just like trolls, right? So you can't really engage with such people. And it goes for real life as well, that, you can't engage with everybody and try to make them happy. Women are also like people pleasers, right? Matlab, most women are. And you don't want to fall down that trap. It's good to be, pleasing people you love, perhaps, or, after setting some relevant boundaries. But don't try to become a people pleaser in your professional journey. Just go all out and be shameless about it. I think that is very, very important. We try to be, we try to put on all these boundaries and, rules for our own self, and we shackle our own self. Don't do that. Other people would be trying to shackle you. Why give them an added advantage of your self-doubt?
Awesome. And if you're female listening to this episode right now, I want you to know that, just like Tarusha said, be shameless about it. Always hype yourself up. Don't put yourself down or lose your confidence. I mean, you're not ice cream. You're not supposed to please everybody, just like you said. So always hype yourself up, ladies. Always hype yourself up. So let's talk about execution and shipping.
Yeah.
So execution and shipping rapidly is critical in such a fast-paced ecosystem because Web3 is such a fast-paced ecosystem. So what project management and development practices do you recommend Web3 builders adopt to optimize execution?
See, it depends on your team size. Very honestly, you'll have to set out some processes depending on the team size, depending on who is actually taking ownership of the product. But a very basic and a good suggestion that I can give you here when it comes to execution is that, you can set out, as I said, you set out your vision, you set out a roadmap. And after, you've set out that particular roadmap, you can break that particular roadmap down into monthly or quarterly goals. Have define a North Star metric that, okay, this is the North Star metric, and we will consider ourselves a success if you're able to achieve this particular North Star metric. So then, once you have defined that, then breaking that down into perhaps bi-weekly or weekly sprints where the goal is defined for each department, that the tasks are maybe on a macro level being defined by their manager or the team lead, would immensely help you in getting the execution aspect right. See, it's not just but that is like still just the half the battle won, because you can plan and you can put everything on paper, have a process, but and you can have a good feedback loop as well, that you are checking in and the leads are checking in with the team every day, and you are perhaps as somebody, as a founder, you're checking in every week to make sure that everything is on track. But again, that is just half the battle won. It's just a process. Execution is what matters. So you need to be very, very ruthless when it comes to who you are adding to your team. And not ruthless in the mean that you'll be cruel. It just means that these need to be very, very superior folks who really know what they're doing, and they stick to the deadlines, because one bad fish can really spoil the entire pond and can make your momentum really slow. And as you said, that we need to ship fast and execute faster, perhaps in the Web3 space, because it moves very fast. But it's important that you have the right set of people and a team that you can trust, uh, who will follow the plan that has been made, because ultimately the key is execution. Having clarity over the roadmap, having clarity over the monthly and the quarterly goals, having North Star metrics defined for each month and each quarter, and then further putting it down in terms of goals and tasks for each department or each person, and having a feedback loop. Those would be some good pointers to begin. And I don't think any team is too small to, start with something like this, even though this sounds like quite a lot of work and this sounds really heavy operationally. I do really think that no matter how large the team, if you have these things there, it'll be easier to scale as well, because I've done that. I've scaled teams. And when there are predefined processes, then, you just need to tweak the processes a little bit, rather than, sitting down and making processes from when you start scaling. And then that becomes a hassle. That can become a bottleneck. You don't want that. You don't want to incur any tech debt as well. So having this kind of clarity would ensure that, everybody is on the same page and you are executing in the most efficient manner.
All right, awesome. That was detailed. That was extremely detailed. Thank you. And so let's talk about helpful resources. What resources have been most valuable for you in continuously learning and staying updated as Web3 technologies and use cases evolve rapidly? And how do you tend to filter the most relevant?
So, I would say that all resources, like books mostly, unless they are fictionalized versions, and they can be then good for entertainment, they become obsolete by the time they come out, unless they are anecdotal, right? So I don't know if I can really recommend any books, but I do always recommend Internet of Money. I think if you're somebody who's starting off, then I would definitely, even if you're not somebody who's starting off, you're in the space, I would recommend Internet of Money, all the volumes, time and over again. If you're not into books, then the basically the material in the books of Internet of Money is available on YouTube as well, and you can check it out. In terms of me personally, I think I use Twitter and Reddit quite a bit to make sure that I'm in touch with what is happening. I'm in little in touch with the user base that I'm building for. I think that is very, very important. How do you keep upskilling yourself? I think you need to, right now in this day and age with the internet and with relatively cheaper data plans, I don't think anybody should have an excuse about how they cannot learn or acquire a new skill. If you think that there is something new that has come up and you found your niche, you think that, okay, this is my niche and this is where I shine, then follow the right people, follow people who have been there, who've done that. And that doesn't mean that do whatever and all of it what they are doing, because that might work for them, it might not work for you. But it's good to know, and then perhaps make an informed decision that, okay, this is a direction I want my professional journey to go in. Hence, I want to perhaps, take the similar journey that this person has taken, or at least learn from a similar resources that this person is learning from, or at least learn about this particular subject matter that this person is talking about. Again, I would not like to recommend anything specific apart from the Internet of Money books. I think that, you have to basically be clear about your niche and your strength, and then hang around in those communities, follow those people who have been there, who've done that, and who are continuing to excel, so that, because then they become a part of your peer group, perhaps, right? And you are a sum total of 5 people that you spend most of your time with. So if you're spending time with such people who are inspiring and who are doing so well, you'll be forced to upskill yourself, and you'll be forced to look up new subjects and notions that you perhaps don't understand. And that is the way to stay ahead of the curve. And one more thing, you need to be ready to unlearn things. I think that's very, very important, because in Web3, what is true today might not stand true day after tomorrow. So be ready to unlearn as well. I think anybody who's too rigid in their thought process, they cannot really do well in Web3.
Yes, the last line you added was actually what happened to me when I wanted to transition into the Web3 space. I had to learn and unlearn so many things, and then while
Yeah.
I was I was like, okay, this is not I can't find this relatable. This is not relevant to what I want to do in Web3. So I had to learn and unlearn so many things, and yeah, I'm still doing that because it's a continuous learning phase. You have to learn and unlearn a couple of things at all times, which is really important because it helps you filter what needs to stay and what needs to leave. So so yeah, I would say I find that relatable. Right. So let's talk about startups now. What traditional startup advice did you discover that did not apply when building your blockchain companies, and how did you adapt and learn quickly?
So what were the kind of new things that I came across while building in Web3 as against Web2? That is your question, correct?
Yeah, yes, please. And when you were building your Web3 startups and you're like, oh, okay, this applies in Web2, but then it's not going to
Yeah.
work in Web3.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, ultimately, I don't think it's very, very different, because ultimately you're building a business and any business needs to make money. And to make money, you need users and you need use cases. So all of that remains the same. I think one particular part or two parts that are very different as against when you're building in Web2. One is community, and the other would be tokenomics, or any kind of economy that you're creating. I think those two things become very, very different when it comes to Web 2 to Web 3. I think building a community is not, now it's becoming big even in Web 2, but earlier it was just a phenomena that was very, very exclusive to the Web 3 ecosystem, trying to create a community and making sure that you are getting community excited about your product and everything. And then the tokenomics part obviously is an entirely whole full-time job, taking care of your economy that you're building. A little caveat here, I do think that in Web 3, because things move fast and because this is a technology in its infancy, at times people get away with charging ridiculous prices for very simple things that can be accomplished if you just create a process around it internally. So beware of that. I think that is something that you should perhaps really think twice about before spending your hard-earned money on. So just be aware there. But yeah, the main differences I think would be community and primarily tokenomics aspect. Those are where things really are very, very different. And in communities, I'm like including events, offline events, virtual events, and whatnot. All of that becomes drastically different as against when you're building in Web 2.
Okay, so as a follow-up question, which do you think is easier building a Web3 startup from scratch or building a Web3 startup from scratch?
I don't think anything is easier or difficult. Whatever you want to build, if it is necessary that it requires blockchain technology or decentralized technology, then you build it in Web3. Otherwise, you build it in Web2. You just don't get on a bandwagon because it's trending at the moment. Like everybody is right now talking about AI in a big way. Last year, it was, metaverse, and the year before that, it was NFTs. So there's always going to be something that is trending. You need to build a solution around a real problem that your potential user faces. And the technology stack is important, yes, but don't just stick onto any tech stack that you're building your app on just for, because it's trending at the moment and just for the heck of it. That's never a good idea. And I think, at easy or difficult, there is no binary answer to this. I think, as an entrepreneur, I think there will be phases. There will be times when it is relatively smooth sailing. And then there will be really slam times when, you are ready for a launch, or when your product is not able to find a product market fit, or when you're running out of funds. Or, your team has like certain bad players, and that is kind of ruining the culture of the company. There will be many, many challenges. And those challenges, I think, are very common, in Web2 as well as Web3. And because this particular technology, the stack is a little new, it's a very small space. um, I would say that, perhaps uh, it has its pros and cons, right? It's a small space, so you can really reach out to anybody, get some answers, and collaborate. But because it's such a small space, you really cannot hide behind your failures. It's your failure is also very, very public. A pro would be that when you're building in Web3, there are already open source libraries, etc., that can help you out immensely. But if you're building something 0 to 1, then it can be an uphill battle, because not only does the user not understand what you're building, but also even stakeholders, they would have trouble understanding your technology because it's something so new. In Web2, because it's been around for a while, I think 0 to 1 technologies, again, it can be a challenge, but it's not so difficult perhaps to get them off the ground, simply because there are more people, right? And the law of averages kind of come in there. So I don't think it's like, Web 2 versus Web 3. I just think it's about what you're building, and what is the kind of potential target market you have in mind for that particular product. I think being an entrepreneur is hard as nails. And I tip my hat to every entrepreneur who's putting in their blood, sweat, and tears into a product that they're building.
Awesome. So let's talk about your opinion on diversity and inclusion. So,
Mhm.
as a successful woman founder in Web3, what suggestions do you have for improving diversity and inclusion in the ecosystem, and why is this important?
It's very, very important. Again, it comes down to representation, right? I think representation becomes very, very important, because you're not just working for yourself. You are creating representation. You're creating aspirations and inspiration for the next generation. It's very important that people feel seen, and people feel that, they can see themselves and visualize themselves where perhaps you are. So inclusion and diversity, these are not just feel good, uh, subject matters or notions that, you keep dropping in conversations and say that, okay, yeah, we are all for it. Please think of it as something very, very important. Why is it important? Because, we are all coming from different demographics, and we have our own limited way of looking at things, due to our cultural upbringing, and, just the kind of content that we have perhaps consumed. And now, because everything is driven by algorithms, you are sure to know that some algorithm is actually ruling how you are thinking, and perhaps what your first response is to any given situation. So just think about what a additional layer of nuance, and how much depth would be added perhaps into your team if it is more inclusive and it is more diverse. One good thing, and there was very little good that came out of COVID, but one good thing is that during COVID, I think a lot of teams and platforms started working remotely. That opened up the opportunity for companies to be able to hire talent, which was, at the other side of the world, and for people to be working in very diverse teams. And I think that was a very big advantage. I think it is very important to have a team as diverse as possible, and, to actively go out of your way to look out for such profiles and make sure that you can include them, not just because it feels good, but also just think how much depth it is adding to the way you are looking at the product, or the way you are going to be thinking of the product in the future. Because always remember that all of us are coming with our own set of biases, and it would only help if we have different voices there in shaping our perspective.
That's right. It's actually true. So let's go back in time. Like let's use a time machine to go back in time. So if you could go back in time and give your younger self advice when first entering Web3, what would it be?
Okay, so if I had to go back in time and give myself some advice, I would say, I think I would say that, okay, try to not, again, I think it comes down to unlearning, that, it's good to unlearn certain notions and ideas that you might have had in your head about certain things. That would be one. And the other thing that I would perhaps tell my younger self is, again, to really just go out there, and it's okay to fail, and be more public about just your struggles. I think that even one person just going out about their struggles and becoming public about it, that gives strength to a lot of people, because again, it's all about being heard and seen, and they feel seen in the struggle of somebody else. And that would help not just you, but also so many other people. So I think making that into a habit would be my advice, that really just, like, don't be so afraid. And I think this is good advice even for me right now, that don't be afraid, because at times you get so caught up in your own image of that you've created for yourself in your own head, that you are afraid of certain things, or shipping out a product which might not be 100%, or shipping out a blog post that might make you you know make people perceive you as a little too vulnerable, perhaps. I think there's no point. Honestly, people who matter are not thinking about what you're doing, and unless you really really get it right. And the people who don't matter will always have something to say, and their opinion doesn't matter. So just go out all guns blazing. Don't be so fearful. I think that would be advice that I would give.
I also needed to hear this advice, but sometimes you can get caught up in your own thoughts, and then you're assuming that everyone everyone is thinking about you, or everyone you as a failure, things like that. When in reality, nobody even cares about you, or cares about what you're thinking of. So just go allow God's blazing. I needed to also hear that advice. Thank you so thank you. And thank you so much, Tarusha, for an insightful and exciting conversation. I mean, I wish you could just go on, and it was super insightful. And I love the way you answered questions. I gave detailed. It was like a masterclass in how would I say it? A masterclass in build freezing projects in Web3.
I hope I didn't bore anybody. Like, really, thank you so much.
It was really, really interesting and detailed and entertaining and engaging and insightful. I could go on and on and on and on and on.
Very, very kind. Thank you.
But thank you so much for an insightful and exciting conversation. It was so great learning so much from you today. And now wraps up.
Honor. Thank you so much. Really, I'm very grateful that you could make the time to speak to me.
Yeah. Thank you for gracing us with your appearance on the show. Thank you. And that wraps up today's episode of the Web3 Quick Bite podcast. We hope you enjoyed the discussion, because I sure did. And if you have any feedback or questions, please reach out on social media or send us an email at web3quickbites@gmail.com. Thank you again to our guests for joining us, and thank you listeners for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more exciting content, so be sure to subscribe and tune in. Bye.